Vidralis woke the way it always woke. Loud, bright, and far too alive for someone carrying quiet inside. Fabric swayed from ropes strung between windows, artisans shouted prices, street performers tuned their instruments, and the smell of warm bread mingled with hot metal. The city pulsed, even when he wasn't ready to pulse with it. He walked slowly, trying not to draw attention, though every step felt heavier than it should. And no matter how much he tried to ignore it, he kept feeling the same strange weight in the air, as if the people around him expected him to speak, expected him to be someone. Then he heard the first shout. Aedo? The name struck him like a stone to the chest. 3 young musicians sprinted across the market toward him, laughing, cheering, calling out, as if a dear friend had returned from the dead. Their leader, Lior, wrapped him in a tight embrace, the kind reserved for someone deeply missed. Lior said they thought he had vanished for good, that he'd disappeared at his peak, that even the most irritating drunks asked where he'd gone. Another musician nudged his arm, reminding him of some wild night at the Purple Drake. The third said Vidralis had felt emptier without him. He tried to smile, but it came out wrong, crooked, and uncertain. A flicker of recognition crossed his eyes, only to vanish just as quickly. He took a breath. He said he didn't remember, didn't know who this Aedo was. Silence fell between them, the kind that says more than words. Lior tried to laugh it off, but his laugh broke halfway. He told him that when the memories returned, they'd be waiting, and that it'd be good to hear him play again. He answered quietly, "That's exactly what scares me." They stepped back, confused, wearing the kind of sad smile people use when they want to help but can't. Vidralis roared back to its usual noise, but inside him, something had cracked. As he moved away from the crowd, his thoughts drifted toward that name, Aedo. Too light a name for someone carrying so much weight. People imagine being remembered is easy. That being loved is a blessing. That attention fills you. No one asks what happens when the lights go out and you're still there, alone with a reflection you barely recognize. Being Aedo meant smiling without reason, singing when his voice trembled, faking joy to bury sadness. The louder the applause, the less he knew who they were clapping for. The man or the mask? The person or the invention? They said he left without warning. Maybe they were right. But how does one warn others that he can't survive being himself anymore? Aedo was adored, but he was drowning. Aedo was talented, but he could barely breathe. And every time someone called that name, it felt like summoning the ghost of someone he'd had to kill just to stay alive. Maybe that's why he lied. Why he said he couldn't remember. It wasn't fully a lie, not fully a truth. He didn't remember how to be Aedo without pain. And maybe he didn't want to. Lost in thought, he suddenly realized where his feet had taken him. A small, quiet tavern, too still for Vidralis. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. The tavern was dim and heavy with silence. Vidralis sang outside, but in here, the sound seemed to die at the threshold. The place smelled of damp wood and stale drink. The man behind the counter lifted his gaze. Older, not by age, but by hurt. His eyes held no surprise, only recognition and something deeper. Something like bitterness wrapped in longing. "You," the merchant said. Only that. A single word that landed like a weight. "I should have known you'd come back. Men like you always do." He tried to answer, but nothing felt honest. He said he didn't remember being there. The merchant let out a short, bitter laugh. "Of course you remember. You sang here. Once. And then you ran like your life depended on it." He glanced around. A small, scarred stage, a worn stool, and on the wall a wooden plaque carved with names of performers long past. One name, faint, nearly erased, caught his eye. Caelum, a name he felt in his chest before recognizing it. The merchant saw it. That was you. Not Aedo, not the darling of the taverns. Here, that night, you were Caelum. For the first and only time. He swallowed. He asked why he'd have run. Why he would abandon a moment like that. The merchant leaned forward. You ran because you were honest. Too honest. You opened your whole soul that night. And when a man stares his own truth in the face, he has to choose, stay, or run. He felt the memory pressing against him. Music, heat, trembling hands, the sharp ache in his throat. If he had stayed one day longer, he would have broken. The merchant continued. You didn't steal my money. That was never it. You stole the chance I gave you, the chance to keep being honest. You stole the man I saw on that stage and left behind this shadow. He didn't argue. Couldn't. The words carved through him with terrible accuracy. Tell me, the merchant said quietly, why did you really leave? His voice cracked before he could stop it. If I had stayed, I would have hurt more people. Silence filled the room. Heavy, thick. And who saved you? The merchant asked. He couldn't answer. Because no one did. He had only run until he couldn't anymore. He thanked the merchant, though he wasn't sure for what. Maybe for the honesty. Maybe for recognizing something in him he no longer recognized himself. He stepped back into the streets. Vidralis felt louder now, alive, despite him. And suddenly the city wasn't just noise, it was a mirror. A craftsman glanced at him, hesitating as if seeing a ghost. A shop window displayed an instrument he once played. A child's clumsy melody echoed a rhythm he pretended to love. Vidralis didn't speak his name. It whispered it. Everywhere. Caelum, Aedo, his real name. 3 doors, none with a key. He turned up a narrow stairway and stopped to breathe, hands on his knees, not from exertion, but from the weight of being recognized by a city he no longer recognized himself in. For a moment, he feared collapsing there, letting Vidralis swallow what remained of him, but he forced himself to keep walking. Then he saw it, a crumpled sheet of paper pressed beneath a stone. He picked it up. Handwritten lyrics. Sloppy, unfinished. The handwriting wasn't exactly his, but close enough to cut. The first line read, I sing because I don't know how to speak. His throat tightened. It sounded like something he would have said before everything fell apart. He folded the paper and slipped it into his pocket. Sometimes, the world left clues of who you'd been. Small traps of memory, just to test how badly you wanted to forget. He walked again, without purpose. The streets narrowed as if Vidralis itself were guiding him somewhere he'd been avoiding. A silence settled inside him, not of the city, but of reckoning. All the questions he'd been swallowing rose like smoke. Who had he been? Who had he hurt? Who could he still become? He turned into a familiar alley, and there she was, standing beside a wooden door he knew without remembering. She froze when she saw him, not from surprise, but from collision. Years of unsaid words slammed into a single second. She spoke his real name, the one only she used. He stopped. His body answered before his mind did. She walked toward him slowly, as if approaching a ghost that had haunted her for too long. Her voice shook only when she fought to keep it steady. You come back here like nothing happened, she said, like I was just dust behind you. He tried to claim he didn't remember, but the lie fell apart under her gaze. Don't do that to me, she said, breaking. I spent years imagining this moment, years rehearsing what I'd say, years hating you, years loving you, and now you show up pretending you don't know who I am? She stepped closer. You left without a word, left me thinking I was the problem, left me thinking I ruined everything. He wanted to explain, wanted to say he had been lost, suffocating, terrified, that he didn't know whether he was the villain or just someone drowning quietly. But the truth stuck in his throat. "I was harsh," she said. "I pushed. I hurt you. I know that, but I loved you. The only way I knew how, and you never let me see you breaking." Silence hung between them, deep enough to drown in. "I'm sorry," he managed. She shut her eyes. Tears slipped free. "I don't need your love," she whispered. "I just needed honesty." Once, he couldn't give it. Not then, not now. She understood, and it hurt. "Whoever you are now, I hope someday you have the courage to look back." She stepped inside, closed the door softly. He stood alone in the alley. Vidralis exhaled, as if the city had been holding its breath. And for the first time that day, he wasn't sure he wanted to be found. He stayed there, breathing slowly, trying to understand what still made sense inside him. 3 names followed him. 3 versions he wasn't sure he wanted to remember. The mask the world adored. The man he could have become. And the one who hurt others without knowing how to ask for forgiveness. But as he walked back into the restless streets of Vidralis, something shifted inside, not peace, but recognition. Maybe he had never been just one thing. Maybe no one is. Maybe he was made of every version he'd abandoned along the way. The artist, the man who ran from what he felt, the lover who failed while trying to survive his own silence. That didn't make him a monster. Maybe it simply made him human, flawed, layered, broken in shades no one had ever fully seen. For the first time in a long while, he thought, if I am all of these versions, maybe I can learn to become one of them without fear. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't redemption. It wasn't an answer. It was just a step. And steps, even the heavy ones, still move forward.